Deep in the Canadian wilderness, we go hunting for the elusive Sasquatch, and we happen to find a female? Find out what's going on as I hereby summon all my imps to join me on my adventures through Marvel Snap. Hey everybody, it's Annabelle. So do we have an interesting one on this particular week? This week we have Sasquatch. Sasquatch actually started out life as a doctor from Vancouver, Canada, where he met Bruce Banner and they shared thoughts on physics and gamma radiation. Banner would encourage him to pursue his research, and that made him perform an experimentation on himself with gamma radiation in an attempt to replicate the process that transformed the Hulk. He bombarded himself with gamma rays projector at an isolated laboratory near the Arctic Circle. This transformed him into a raging beast known as the Sasquatch. Sasquatch destroyed his lab and ran off into the Arctic wilderness before reverting to his human form. He was recovered by a Canadian search and rescue team and taken to a hospital for observation. He was baffled to discover that his alter ego had orange fur and that it was not the gamma rays that turned him into this beast, but that his lab equipment had opened a doorway between this world and a prehistoric past that granted him this physical power. Sasquatch is a founding member of the Canadian superhero team Alpha Flight. His metamorphosis is triggered by his willpower, but unlike the Hulk, he has no difficulty maintaining his personality and intelligence while in forms. However, he still does have a serious problem keeping his bestial nature in check and can lose control while fighting. If left unchecked, he will try to take out his own teammates in a battle. Sasquatch's original body was destroyed as one day while he was out with his girlfriend Aurora, he was shot in the chest and seriously injured. But the great beast did not want to stop helping, and the soul then took on a new host, and the original orange coloration was now a white furred version. When they transformed back into their human form, however, it was that of a woman. Even though she is now female, she still has all her intelligence of the past life and still wants to help. Sasquatch possesses high superhuman strength. She could potentially be ranked amongst the strongest superheroes. In addition to strength, she has a very high endurance due to a healing factor. She has sharp claws that are sharp enough to cut through materials such as stone, wood, flesh, and even some types of metal. She also has superhuman senses, agility, and stamina. Her thick coat of fur prevents her from the cold, and she is also a brilliant scientist, even in her beast form, specializing in radiation. Sasquatch's physical powers come from the realm of the Great Beast, which is the home of all of the monsters from Canada's prehistoric past. This is represented in Marvel Snap by them costing one less for each monster that came from the past turn. So in Marvel Snap, they are a 6 cost, 10 power with the description of static, which means it happens no matter what. This costs 1 less for each card that you played being the key word in there, last turn. I keep looking at this card, and as I go over this card more and more, this card may be a 5-star card. And let me explain why. I was going to give this a 4, to be honest, and at the very end, I came around and gave this a 5. And I'm hoping that I'm not super wrong on this. So let's look at some of the reasons why that this is a 5-star card. Now, everybody has been talking about the most obvious interactions with this, which is the Mysterio. If you go with the Mysterio on 2 makes it so that you can play Sasquatch on 3. But that's kind of a one-trick pony. And I think that kind of limits where this card can be played, because there are some other cards that you gotta look at. Now, just to make sure that everybody understands, stuff like Mr. Sinister doesn't count. This is not a played card. The colon on Mr. Sinister is not a played card. The only card that so far plays its minions is Mysterio. And the thing about this card is you kind of got to look at it almost as, on the worst day, unless something goes really wrong, you're getting a Doc Ock. Even if you go turn 1, play a card, turn 2, play 1 card, turn 3, play just 1 card, turn 4, play 1 card, on turn 5, you're basically getting the same stats as a Doc Ock without it getting the on-reveal ability. That's not bad. If for whatever reason on turn 3 you can play down 2 cards, which is known for happening in even destroy decks, on turn 4 you end up with a Call Obsidian without any restrictions on it. Getting a Call Obsidian in a destroy deck is nothing to be ashamed about. You can also just play it early if you get lucky and lock down a lane. Putting Professor X on top of a Sasquatch pretty much means that you win that lane. If you play down Sasquatch before Professor X, you are going to win that lane most likely. You can even go Professor X if you get lucky. So the best idea is that on turn 2 you play the Mysterio. On turn 3 you play the Sasquatch, which I'm representing by Dr. Ock right here. And then on turn 4, you play the Crossbones. That's going to win you a lane on turn 5. You don't even need the Daredevil to figure that one out. But let's go with the worst case scenario. Let's say you can't get anything on this. You even have to skip turn 5 for whatever reason. You're ending up with a She-Hulk. If you've ever played She-Hulk before in your life and you get to turn 6 and you have no other bad play, no other player I should say than She-Hulk, do you feel bad about playing She-Hulk? And the answer a lot of times is no. This is a She-Hulk that you couldn't play any other turn. And that's getting it on turn 6 worst case scenario. And this is before you start looking at stuff like the fact of Kitty Pryde and the bounce decks, where you go with the Kitty Pryde and the Angela, you play down the Angela, you get thrown the Kitty Pryde on it, and stuff like Beast, and even stuff like Loki. If you play this in a Loki deck and you get this before Loki comes out, you play the Loki, then you still can draw the Sasquatch, and then everything in your hand is cheaper. You gotta be careful about any card that you can play as a zero-cost card. It's that simple. And another thing that you gotta understand is this card pretty much has no counters. Leech can't touch it for pretty much all intents and purposes because it's a static. Leech can't touch it, Cosmo can't touch it, Echo can't touch it. The only 2 cards that can actually touch this are, first of all, Shang-Chi, because it goes over 10, and second of all, Mobius and Mobius. And if you even look at the Triple M, let me go to Mobius for a second, hang on. And turn on cards I don't own. If you're to look at the Mobius here for just a second, Mobius shows up on 3. So if you do get the Mysterio combo, you play the Mysterio on 2, you're playing the Sasquatch on 3, which means Mobius can't do anything about this. So that means at the very end, if you can get the Mysterio combo, the only thing that really can take this down is Shang-Chi. Even Red Guardian doesn't care. He doesn't care about Red Guardian, they don't care about Red Guardian. So, even in decks that don't make sense, you're looking at a 5-10 on the worst day, and if you can get it out of turn sooner, you're looking at a 4-10, which is a Call Obsidian. You're looking at a Call Obsidian that has no downsides. If on turn 3 you can play only 2 cards, and that's not asking a lot to play 2 cards on turn 3 if you hold your turn. So, it may be a better card than just the deck that everybody's slotting it into. Also, interesting little note, if you are playing this with Blink, it will turn into the death if you haven't drawn your death yet, because it's still considered a 6-drop at that point, where death is still considered a above 6-drop. Not sure if you ever want to do that, because it's only a slight improvement, unlike other cards, but just so that you're aware of where this comes from. Other than that, in this particular week, we've got Ravonna Renslayer. Ravonna Renslayer is, what's the word I want to use to be polite? She's a card that you can, for lack of a better word, replace a lot of times, and the decks that she goes into are very limiting. You need to have the deck and then put Ravonna into it. You can't have just a deck and throw Ravonna into it and you'll be happy. Unlike all of the other cost reduction cards that exist, you basically need a deck that exists that is a Ravonna deck before you basically get Ravonna. You can't just have a normal deck to play 24/7, slip Ravonna into there, and be a good fit. You have to build a deck around Ravonna, and sometimes when people start seeing that deck built around Ravonna, they know that it's a Ravonna deck, if that makes any sense. And the other card in here is Havoc. God, is Havoc horrible. Havoc was a meme when it came out. Havoc is still a meme. If you make Havoc work, if you run with Havoc, more power to you. You can have my cubes. Whoever can make that Havoc deck run, bravo. So, in this particular week, the only card that I'd be looking for is Sasquatch. You're not bad off getting Ravonna, but you can easily make other decks than Ravonna requires. If you're getting Ravonna, you have to make a Ravonna deck. That's the best way I can describe it. So, out of this week, you're basically just looking for the Sasquatch. Let's find out what we get in the box, however. So, what's in the box? What's in the box? Let's all find what's in the box. Box says Jeff! I don't think I've ever done one on Jeff. I do own a Jeff somewhere in the past, but I've never done a Jeff video, so I will do an actual Jeff video this weekend. On Friday, hopefully. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, remember, play for fun.